Welcome to another episode of the Wealthy Podcast. I'm your host, Shauna Nyrose. Today we are talking to Milena Perini, who is a pediatric physiotherapist. This episode was really interesting. And for those of you that have very young children or are expecting a baby, you're really going to want to tune in. Milena talks about how important it is to really see our baby's movements, to understand when maybe things aren't feeling as easeful for them, and how important early intervention is to ensure that our babies and our children are able to experience their worlds in the most amazing, creative, and playful ways. Tune in. Lots of great information on this episode, especially if you're new parents. You're going to want to listen up. From a baby's first steps to a child's ability to run, play, and explore their world, movement is foundational to a child's confidence, independence, and even mental well-being. But what happens when a child faces challenges in their physical development? How do parents know when to seek support, and what kind of difference can early intervention make? That's where pediatric physiotherapists like Milena Perini come in. With over 20 years of experience helping infants and children move, grow, and thrive, Milena specializes in early childhood development, neuromuscular disorders, and the unique needs of premature babies. Having worked across Brazil, the USA, and Canada, Milena believes that movement isn't just about physical ability. It's about unlocking a child's full potential through play, creativity, and expert care. In this episode, we'll explore how pediatric physiotherapy shapes a child's future, break down common misconceptions, and discuss the deep connection between movement and mental health. Milena will also share practical advice for parents, simple, everyday ways to support your child's physical development, and recognize when professional support might be needed. Because when we invest in a child's movement, we are investing in their future wealth. So let's dive in. Welcome, Milena.
Thank you very much. That's amazing. I don't even know if that's me or
that is you.
Thank you. I'm going to use that.
I am so excited to have you. We were just chatting a little bit before we started recording, and Milena has a ton of energy. I wish sometimes that this podcast wasn't mediated through like Spotify or YouTube, so you could actually feel Milena's energy, because she is just a really bright and shiny individual. So
thank you.
This is going to be fun.
Thank you. Very happy to be here. Thanks.
So you are from Brazil?
I am from Brazil, born and raised in Brazil.
I love it.
Yeah.
We have an opening tradition on the podcast.
Okay.
Basically, everybody that comes here with a passion for health in some capacity.
Yep.
And I would just like to know, where did your connection, passion, interest in health and well-being, and then maybe even like children and movement, where did that all begin? Was it back in Brazil? Like, tell me the story.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. It was back. I was born and raised in Brazil. And funny story, I never thought about working in healthcare. I wanted to be a flight attendant.
Oh.
And now I'm so scared of flying. So I'm glad that didn't work out, right? But as I said, like, I'm very, energetic, but I was a very shy child. So my mom put me in dance. She put me to teach ballet, to learn how to dance, ballet, tap. And I found myself in there. I felt like with movement, I could express myself. I felt safe. I made new friends. So that opening a door to a new kind of experience for me as a little girl that was shy. So dance has always been part of my life since that day. And that led me to apply to physio. So I got into physio school with the thought of, I'm going to work in orthopedics, sports physio, and with dancers. Well, that didn't go the way that I thought. My first clinical rotation in the physio school in a neonatal intensive care unit, it was the same neonatal intensive care unit and hospital that I stayed as a premature baby. I was born at 30 weeks, and 50-something years ago, there was unaware of it. So I stayed in this NICU for a few weeks. So I was attending this baby with this amazing, very experienced nurse. She was teaching me like how to move the baby and the endotracheal tube and all those, the wires and lines, how to manipulate the baby and navigate around. And I look at her and I said, interesting enough, I was one of those babies 21 years ago. And she looked at me and was like, what do you mean? I was like, I was a 30-week-old baby. I stayed here for a few weeks. And she was like, Milena, like, I've been working here for 23 years. I'm pretty sure I took care of you.
Oh, wow.
So at that time, I was like, this is the full circle. Like, I was a baby, like this 29-week-old baby. And now I'm here working with them and helping them. After this moment, I was like, I think I love this. That's what I want to do. And I never stop. I never stopped learning. And there's always something to learn. So early intervention, it's the passion of my life. And it's beautiful. It's the foundation of the rest of those child's life. So that's how it started with dance. It starts with movement. And that's what I still do with the kids, because we need to move and they love to move. But it's just how to teach them to move in a proper way with motor planning, with everything, give them the guidelines and breaking downs that we need to achieve a goal through movement.
I love that. And it's so interesting how we find our paths, isn't it? Like sometimes they just find us. Yeah. And what a beautiful full circle moment for you. And I imagine, and I'm going to ask you some questions about working with premature babies, because I imagine that's a big part of your work. Obviously very special to you. But before we sort of get into some of the specifics, I think a great place to start to kind of frame what we're talking about is like, what exactly is a pediatric physiotherapist? I think most of us know. Okay, so here's my experience with physio. Is like, and I love my physio. But it's like basically I go there because something is hurting or not working. And then they give me these exercises very earnestly, tell me to do them every single day, and then I don't do them. So that's how it goes for me. So like, what exactly is it that you do?
It's I've been doing for almost 30 years and I still, like, there's a lot of people who doesn't know what we do. Right? So it's simple for you to go to physio and your physio asks, can you please lift your arm and external rotate, and then can you reach for this? It's impossible to ask that for a 3-month-old baby.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that we have to learn, a lot of research, a lot of that. How are you going to ask a baby to side flex their neck?
And how can you tell when there's something that isn't moving correctly, when they can't communicate?
Exactly. So as a pediatric physio, we see kids from 0 to 18 years old. That's what pediatrics range is, right? And that range, we see neurological conditions, a lot of sports injuries, all sort of things. For me, my little pocket as early intervention, we see kids 0 to 3 years old. That's the golden age for neurodevelopment. And it's the golden age for neuroplasticity of the brain. So again, it's like when we build a house, and if your foundation is not strong enough, it doesn't matter how beautiful your building is going to be. Everything's going to crumble down. So having a good foundation of development, it's so important for the baby. So I see 0 to 3 for early intervention. And you ask, like, but what kind of babies you see? How I'm going to know if my baby needs physio? So there's 3 kind of things that we divided up. Issues that happens before birth, during birth, and after birth. And there's a variety of things. It can be orthopedic conditions, can be genetic syndromes, can be neurological symptoms. There can be just development delays, can be head shape issues, or issues during birth, or the baby was breech. So it's big. There's a lot to be assessed. Okay, so then it's like, okay, but what do you do with those babies, and how do you know they need physio, right? It's a fully assessment. So usually those babies get referral. You don't need a referral to come see a physio, but usually it's through the nursing or the family doctors, usually not the pediatrician at that early in life, and most of them are the parents.
Right.
The parents realize, oh, that's awkward. My baby just looks to the right. Or, oh, I'm having a hard time when I change the diapers and one leg extends, but the other one keeps in flexion. Or babies don't have preferences. That's one of the things that I always tell the parents. Like, my baby doesn't like tummy time. Like, your baby is not born thinking, oh, I'm not going to like tummy time.
Right.
There's something there that he doesn't feel comfortable, or something is missing. That's why he doesn't feel comfortable in tummy time.
Right. It's not that he doesn't like it or she doesn't like it. It's
No.
they don't. I see what you're saying.
And it's not that I prefer to keep my leg in flexion.
Right.
That's not what it is.
That means bent, right?
Yes. The legs are bent. Yes. So that's one of the things that all the parents should be in mind, even before you have a baby. It's they don't have preferences. If they're doing something, there's a reason behind.
Right.
And sometimes,
like if they're looking to the right a lot, or like,
yes.
I know we're going to kind of get into those things, but like, I'm just curious because you mentioned babies before they're born. So is it their positioning, like when they're in utero?
Yes.
That can,
and there's a few reasons, like babies with moms that have gestational diabetes, they're usually bigger babies.
Yes.
They move less.
Because there's not as much room.
There's not enough room.
Okay.
Babies who turn upside down before 29, 30 weeks, they get stuck in there. So we can have problems in mobility on that time. Even during birth, or multiple babies. Like when I have triplets now that I'm seeing.
Right.
So they're stuck in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They're all like.
So there's something
fighting for space.
Yes. There's always a good reason for us to do a full assessment on those babies.
Okay.
And during birth, sometimes you have a breech birth, and sometimes you use forceps. Sometimes the baby's too big. There's, brachial plexus damage and things like that. And after birth, a lot can happen.
Right.
Like genetic things
that you can't anticipate,
strokes, things that is out of our control.
Right.
So it's big. The umbrella is huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but it's beautiful at the same time.
So I find it fascinating actually, because like when you're a new parent, you just think your baby is like a wonder, you just stare at the baby, especially, the first one. Yeah. And the second one too, and the third, because they're all so different.
Yeah.
But I don't know if, like, you also don't want to be, like, there's no manual, so you don't know, right? Like, I remember with my son, which was like now almost 21 years ago, like, it was before we had those helmets for the flat head or whatever. Yeah. And like, I didn't realize that, like, when he always had like that little flat spot on the back of his head, that was like not good, Exactly. But now some of those things I think we're becoming a little bit more aware of. Maybe that's a really good place for us to segue into, what are some of the red flags? Like what? Well, first of all, who's this episode for? Like, who's going to really benefit from this?
Yeah. I believe this episode is for parents that are about to have babies. Okay. I think it's very important to be, to be proactive and see what you have to see. It's not that we're looking for problems, but we're looking for clues.
Right.
That can be a problem or not.
Right.
Sometimes we are very worried about our kids. It doesn't matter if they're about to be born or if they're 22-year-old. 100%. Right?
As soon as you know that they exist,
they're your life, and you worry about everything. So I think parents-to-be is very important to be educated on, like, we go to prenatal classes for birth and for breastfeeding. Nobody goes to a prenatal test for neurodevelopment or for motor development, or how you should position your baby and how can you play with your baby and stimulate at the same time. So I think parents-to-be, it's very important to be aware of what to see, right? First-time parents, very important because you don't know what to expect, right? And even parents, like our kids are all different.
As they
like,
sort of go, as they age, as they grow up. Yeah.
And I see like sometimes I have patients that they come in their third baby and they're like, this is totally different or the other one. It's like, I have no idea how this came from the same parents. And also I believe it's for healthcare professionals, because sometimes they refer to us, but they don't really know exactly what we do. I have patients from doctors, I have patients from other physical therapists that then come to me and they're like, oh, wow, how did you do that? Like, how did you ask this? And he doesn't do that at home. So I think it's for everybody who is about to have a kid, has a kid, or work with kids.
Right. Amazing.
It's not just for the mom and dad that worry about their babies. It's a lot of work about education. That's what I think your job here is so important, is just to spread the word about educating people, in all aspects of life and health.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's get to the question that everybody wants to know. What are we looking for? Like from a newborn. I mean, you've touched on sort of neurological or neuromuscular, all of these things. Like, they're not, like you said, an infant can't tell you, oh, this is normal, this is not normal. So what are we looking for?
Yeah, I wouldn't say the red flags. There's some conditions that are more,
right,
that is going to happen,
obvious,
right? Before birth sometimes, if they're a genetic condition. If it's a neurological condition right after birth, they've been through ICU, NICU, and you will follow through with physio for sure. But there's other that are more simple, right? It's like, so things for you to watch for your baby. Preferences. Baby should not have a preference.
Right.
So they should not look just from one side. They don't like to be on their tummy time. They do not like to be on their side. So they should not have a preference. Yes, they should not enjoy a position, but they should be able to tolerate for a short period of time.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Other things is in terms of head shape. Head shape, I see a lot of kids with head shape. And I believe it's increasing the amount of kids with head shape because of the containers that we have.
Right.
Containers being the bouncing chair, the jumping chair, the beautiful car seat that they're so comfortable they don't want to move.
The swing.
The swing.
My kid would not sleep unless he was in that swing.
So those are the containers. So kids are stuck in there. They're not moving. That causes a development delay. Right. It's not that that's going to cause, but it can.
Right.
Kids should be on the floor. So the first thing is preferences. Oh yeah, like my baby. One other thing that is very common, and so babies has a difficult latching on one breast and not the other side.
Oh, interesting.
So we always think it's our problem, right?
Yes.
Oh, it's my problem. They're not latching. Maybe I don't have milk. They went through all the assessment for breastfeeding clinic and things like that, and it's not working.
Right. Like the baby prefers the left or the right over the right.
Nobody will ever think the problem, not the problem, but the cause can be the baby range of motion of his neck. So if the baby has a preference to look to one side, when you move them to feed on the other side, they don't have the full range of motion. I mean, like moving the neck all the way to the other side. So they can't latch. So they get irritable. They do the extension, they go back, and there's a fight. So sometimes the little things that it's just breastfeeding, having a difficult breastfeeding, look at the baby as well, not just the mom. Other thing that I get quite a bit is like, oh, my baby going to extension. Like, I put him on the floor to do tummy time. They go like the swimming position. Oh, he doesn't like it.
Like stretching out,
he's stretching out, and he's screaming. And it's like, so there is some other reasons that can happen. They can have reflux and they're not feeling well when you put them on that posture. But there are other things that we can work on it. So tummy time is not just on the floor. So teaching parents how to ways to do tummy time on our chest, on our legs, on the table when we're having coffee, with playing with your other kids. So there's a lot of ways, and we always have to look, why is he pushing back, right? So
why is tummy time important?
Tummy time is very important for midline, neck extension, transfer of weight, forward and back. That's going to be the next step for them to roll, for them to transfer to sit, for them to crawl.
Because they get the back strength and the neck strength.
They have all of it.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tummy time, it's very important development component for a baby.
Okay.
We are working. So when you're doing tummy time, because how are you going to move from tummy time to rolling? So the other thing that is very important, Shauna, that we sometimes forget, baby don't jump into tummy time. I always tell that to the parents, like they go and they put the baby on tummy time, right?
Yep.
So they can't fly into tummy time, right? So we, it's like transitional movement.
Right.
It's essential.
Like how to put them down?
Kids. So we teach them, how do you roll into tummy time?
Oh.
Right? So, and sometimes when you put the baby in tummy time, they're like, oh, what I'm doing in here. But if you transition into tummy time.
So from laying on their back.
To
their tummies.
To their tummy.
You should be taking notes, Jason. This is good stuff. Oh, yeah. That's right. He's recording it. Funny how podcasts work, hey?
And also, what's your baby's favorite toy that I say? It's your mom's face.
Right.
It's your mom's eyes and your mom's voice. So if you put the baby on the floor, on their tummy, and they're looking at the floor and all those amazing toys that we have, he doesn't care. Mm-hmm. So I usually teach the parents, you're having coffee, you put them on the counter. Mm. They're going to tolerate tummy time way more. They're going to be looking at you. They're going to be part of your breakfast with your family. Mm-hmm. So it's at very early age, integrating that baby into your life.
Well, and it's also really nice, I think, too, to maintain that connection with your baby, 100%. Right? Like we're sort of learning a lot more about how important those attachments are when babies are really little. Mm-hmm. So, I love that. I mean, maybe it's just because I'm like wistful of the time when my babies would look at me with, all that love in their eyes instead of disdain.
I know.
I have a teenage daughter.
we were their lives. And it's like,
really beautiful. So then, so you sort of mentioned, newborns and kind of like that early infant stage. Mm-hmm. Then what? Like once we sort of get into maybe sitting, toddling, like what again are some of the indicators that a child might not be moving with ease?
Yes. So I would say it's the transition movements again. I have kids by 8 months, 9 months, they're sitting. They're beautiful sitting, but they can get out of the sitting posture. Mm. We talk about the happy sitters. They're beautiful sitting, but they can't move. Mm. Or you get kids that are bump scooting. Yeah. We shouldn't bump scoot.
There's a lot of bump scooters.
There's a lot of, and especially a few years ago, CDC came with the idea that crawling is not part of the development anymore.
Who did? Who was
CDC.
It? Oh, CDC.
And it's like, I was like, no, don't. Crawling is 100% part of development. Okay. If you're sitting on the floor, how are you going to get up to the table to reach for your toy? Yeah. You have to crawl. You have to transfer to your knee. You have to pull to stand. With crawling, there's all the engagement of your core muscles. Mm-hmm. There's dissociation between shoulder and your hips, and exploring. And there's studies that shows that kids who doesn't crawl later in life, they have a lot of problem with fine motor skills and painting sidelines.
Is the alternative just like sitting, scooting, walking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And that doesn't make sense.
Right.
So yes, baby, they have to crawl.
Right.
It's essential for later in life.
And why might they not want to crawl?
Because after there's something there. Mm-hmm. Something is not working well. Mm-hmm. Usually it's a lack of rotational movements. And you have no idea how many kids we get that they're stuck on the middle. They can't do rotation.
So they can't roll.
And they
can't
get
twist.
and that's one of the things the parents come to me when they're 9 months, 10 months, and they're just sitting, and there's like, she gets mad. Like she wants to go and reach for their sister's toy, but she can't.
Can't move.
So usually that's what I get. It's like, what's happening? Why she's. So there's always something that then we go back in time and it's like, did she roll? Oh no, she did not roll. Okay, did she like tummy time? Oh, she did not like tummy time. So it's something that if we catch early, we wouldn't be having that delay later. Okay.
Right. So that's why you're saying like pay close attention when they're quite little.
Quite little.
Because usually the challenges are going to show
early.
up. Interesting.
Yes, it shows up very early.
Yeah.
And one of beautiful thing to work with babies. It's you. I'm an angel person, but when I'm working, they show you. It's and the parents sometimes is like I say, push a chair, sit next to me, and let's look. The baby show what's missing. It's like the way they move and the way they don't move completely shows what they're missing and what they need to move better. And another thing that is so interesting, and then I show the parents, they're like, oh, I never saw that. You know the baby folds that we love, the little rolls that the baby had on the back of their legs.
They're chubbies.
Like chubbies. And it's like, this is a huge guideline for early intervention physical therapy. The folds are there.
The folds but in their
leg, in the back of their leg, on their bum. It shows you how they're moving when we're not watching. So usually you see one leg, there's 3 folds. The other leg, there's 1. Oh, what does that mean?
One leg's
usually
more bent.
One leg's more bent. The other is most of the time in extension. So we have to look for clues. For my older kids, I always say physio is like building a puzzle. We're going to find the missing piece and we're going to put them together so we can get the big picture.
Yeah.
So,
so interesting.
It is.
Okay, now I'm going to go to one that I am so curious about is, and I saw that this is something that is one of the issues that you deal with is the tippy toes walking. Like you'll see little, like sometimes very little kids, but then also like older kids too, which now that I'm listening, I imagine is just because they were younger and it wasn't treated when they're younger. What's the tippy toe walking thing? So that when does that show up?
Tiptoe walking, it's more common than we think.
Yeah. Okay.
And parents worry a lot about it. It starts like kids, they can tiptoe walk kind of, and we don't worry too much about until they're 2.5, 3 years old. They can go on their tiptoes, come back, they can go and back. They're practicing their balance. But we have to, I say that they can tiptoe walk and they're 3-year-old, but we need to see why they're tiptoe walking. So we have to rule out if there's nothing on the hips, because usually it's not on the ankle, it's not on the toes, it's not on the foot. Sometimes the big joints kind of a guide what the little joints are going to do. Right. So you have to see if there's no problems on their hips, if they're or in their back. If there's a muscle weakness, that's why they're pushing themselves forward to compensate. Kids are very smart. They compensate so fast.
So it's not a preference. I love that you've said that. It's not like I don't know. I think sometimes we just default as parents to be like, well, maybe he just prefers to walk on his tippy toes.
No, they don't prefer to walk on their tippy toes.
Right. Okay.
It can be normal, just so parents don't freak out. Oh, my kids just walk on their tippy toes. They have problems. Like it can be normal, but we have to assess to see if there's something behind, if there's a reason. The other thing that I get a lot, ASD, autism, is on the rise, right? And
autism?
Yeah. So nowadays, I think the last research that we had, 1 in 36 kids are diagnosed with autism in the big spectrum, but they are. And some parents come to me usually for the tiptoe walk and say, do you think he has autism?
Oh, like it's a symptom.
It's one of the symptoms. So tiptoe walk can also be a lack of, kids don't like the feeling off the floor. So it's the proprioception, is the sensation. They don't like to feel the floor, so they come off the floor, right? But it's not everybody who goes under tiptoe that happen. But if we let that happen for too long, your muscles can get short. Right. The front of your leg can get weak because we need the dorsiflexion and the plantar flexion, and that is mobility and strength. And so we can't let that happen for too long. So there's a lot of ways that we can do that. And
it just depends on what is causing.
Depends what is causing.
And so there is more than just kind of like I don't know.
Put your
I
foot
look at it,
down.
I'm like, oh, maybe they just have short Achilles or something like that.
No.
Like, no.
No.
Okay.
No.
Just
And
need
we
to
have to
stretch.
see, especially if it's from the hip.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of postures, a lot of exercise, a lot of play that we can introduce
Mm-hmm.
that they don't feel like they're doing exercises. Because it's like, how are you going to ask for a 4-year-old to do, okay, you're going to sit down and you go do 10 dorsiflexion. Now you're going to hold your stretch for a minute.
Also, that dorsiflexion, I have really tight ankles, and it is like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. Right?
Imagine
like,
a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
So you have to pretend with other ways.
Yes.
But you're stretching, you're strengthening. It's not just stretching on kids.
Yes.
If we just stretch, we have to strengthen.
Right.
Because one muscle has to go and work against the other one and kind of be a helper, like
Right.
I tell them kids. So there's a lot of ways that you can work with that.
Right.
And yeah, it's fun. But at the same time, they think they're playing, they think they're doing, but there's always a reason behind.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of work that we put in, a lot of study that we put in to look like they're just having fun and playing,
Mm-hmm.
but actually they're doing a motor planning. We have a goal that we have achieved throughout the movement.
Right. But they don't know.
And they don't know.
They don't know. They just think it's fun.
Love it.
Oh,
They
love
love it. Yeah.
I want to ask you more about the play, because
Yeah.
you're big on sort of play and dance and all of that, integrating all of that into your therapies.
Yeah.
But I just want to actually rewind a little bit to something you said about neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
And the fact that when children are very young, their little brains are still super pliable.
Super.
So can you explain, and you've also sort of said that early intervention is so important. There's a connection there, and maybe you can unpack that a little bit. Why early intervention is so important when it comes to that neuroplasticity element.
Yeah. So neuroplasticity is the ability that your brain has to find new path, to regenerate, and to create new connections. For example, you're going home and Lakeshore is blocked, so you have to go around and get Gordon. So that's what happens. Sometimes we have a blockage that is going to achieve a movement or a function. So our brain,
so your brain will make a workaround.
It's going to make a workaround. And on kids, this is like beautiful work. It still happens at our age. It's not that it doesn't stop, but 0 to 3 is the prime time for us to make those connections happen and find new synapses and kind of go around and find new patterns for that new movement.
Right.
So that's the time where motor planning, repetition, that's why repetition is very important for neuroplasticity.
Right.
So early intervention, teaching your kid how to plan the movement, and especially the movement has to be active. So it's not just passive movement, it has to be active.
So when you say that, it means like if I'm leaning into my yoga teacher days, but like
let's go.
You have a baby or a child and you're trying to like maybe stretch it, rather than you doing the stretch for them, they have to do it.
They have to do it.
Okay.
So we have techniques. We have we took neurodevelopment treatments. We have a lot of courses that we take to achieve the movement. I'll give you like an example. We use toys, right? So I want this kid to reach for the toy that is on my left side, right?
Yeah.
So what I want that to happen is a rotation and a reaching towards this side. Instead of me getting the arm and reaching and doing the stretch on
For
that
them.
side, I was like, okay, look at the toy. So he's gonna look. So vision is very important. So they have to look. Where they look, the movement happens. And then they're like, so now you reach. So they're gonna reach, they go, and they achieve, and they come back. So it's and the same as a baby, like a 2 weeks old baby, they come for neck mobility. You bring toy to the side and to the other side. So I sometimes I look like a crazy person working.
So
and I was like, yeah. So it's all
moving.
about vision, sensorial. It's you have to engage and you have to know how to produce an active movement.
Right.
Not that sometimes we don't do passive stretches. Sometimes it's indicated, but active movement is where the brain is learning. So play, motor planning, intervention, repetition, neuroplasticity.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's almost like I find neuroplasticity so fascinating, mostly because I'm 50 and I feel like it's a lot harder when you're 50 to kind of like retrain your brain around like to stop the workarounds kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the point is that when children are very young, their brains are
plastic,
like super malleable.
Super malleable.
So we can learn good habits or we can learn not so good habits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're trying to intervene before those workarounds become just normalized.
And the other thing that is very important that we work with, when the babies are very young, they move by reflex. So it's automatic.
Okay.
Right? And there's a way and there's a time when the reflex has to be integrated in their brain. So when the baby turns the head to the left, we see extension of that arm and flex on the other side, and the same. So they move by. We think they're smiling. They're not. Sometimes they're not smiling. We think.
What are they doing?
We think they're moving their head. Or look how beautiful they're extending their arm on that side. They want to pick my like. It's all reflexes. It's all automatic responses from the brain. Those reflexes, they have a certain time of their life that they have to be integrated and disappear. If those reflexes doesn't integrate and disappear because a limitation on movement, later in life, we see problems with coordination, with hyperactivity, sensorial problems, cognitive problems. Believe it or not, it's all related to those reflexes that were not integrated at the right time in early infancy.
Interesting. So I want to just like hypothetical scenario here. You have a child that, let's say for whatever reason, maybe it is while in utero or during birth, something happens in their neck that shortens or that makes it more comfortable for them to sort of like have their head tilted to one side.
Yeah.
But, you know, other than sort of being a little odd, doesn't really impact their day-to-day too much.
Yeah.
What happens if that goes untreated?
Well, there's always something that is going to happen.
Yeah.
Not a big thing that is going to happen, but usually when the baby has like torticollis, for example, right?
Yeah. What is that?
It's like it's a shortening of a muscles on your neck. It's like when we do like and your neck hurts.
Yeah, like where you're
so
like,
babies,
oh.
So they are smart. They will go away from pain. So,
what's it called?
Torticollis.
Torticollis.
Yeah.
I'm probably saying it wrong, but.
No, maybe I am too, but that's okay.
We'll put it in, Arden's got it. She'll put it in the notes.
So they will have, because of pain, they will have a preference to incline and rotate to one side.
Okay.
Right? So then, and that's when sometimes breastfeeding becomes a problem.
Right.
Sometimes the mom said, oh, you know what? There's no hair growing on this side of the head, but there's a lot of hair on this side of the head. That's weird.
On the side where the
side where the shortening is. So they're rubbing their head on that side and they're not rotating to the other side. And they will stay there. And with that, the skull is very soft. All the bones on their head is very soft. So that's going to start to get pushed forward. Right? So that's when we have a flat spot in here. When the baby decides to have a flat spot, it's just easy to lay on that. So they're going to stay there. They're not going to move.
What happens to the bones in
their
their
bones
skull
gets
and their
flat,
face?
Then usually it comes forward. So you start to see a little bit of a bulge on the forehead. The ears, it starts to be not aligned. So the ears shift forward. You see even difference on the eyes. They say they have like this almond eye that we call. One eye starts to be smaller than the other eye because this eye is like stuck on this posture, right? They have a preference just to move the arm on the opposite side of the flat spot.
Right.
So it adds some stuff.
Is this very common?
It's very
I know, because I feel like I've seen, like, even just with my kids' friends and stuff, like,
it's very common.
Yeah.
So, and the thing about head shape is like, oh, but you want just them to have a round head. It's not just to have a round head. I want them to have the mobility of their neck. I want them to, when you say about the head shape, everything shifts.
Right.
So later in life, they're going to have a trouble with their glasses.
Right.
That is not going to be aligned. If they're going to play hockey or anything like that, the helmet is always going to you have to adapt. They have problems of the jaw line and everything. So it's not just the head shape to have a perfect round neck. And there's studies that said when the head shape is very more severe, even scoliosis later in life comes.
Yeah.
So it's
the body adapts and adjusts.
Completely. Our body, it's very smart. It compensates, is adapt, and keep moving, right? But sometimes not in the best way.
And does that, you sort of mentioned kind of like difficulties, like I'm just sort of thinking like if that is untreated, would those kids maybe be less coordinated or like more clumsy, fall down more? Not necessarily?
Not necessary for the head shape.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Then not on that big of a
like
picture.
motor level.
Motor level. If it's just the shape of the head, no. But if there's a reason behind why they were not moving the head, then maybe.
Right. Okay.
Right. So that's why every time a baby comes for an assessment, it's a full assessment.
Right.
If they didn't come, they just have a little flat spot on the back. We have to assess scapular strength, rotation, trunk, hips, all the reflexes, all the milestones. It's a full assessment. Right. Vision, everything.
Because
everything is connected.
So many things.
We can separate. We can break down babies, kind of, right? We have it's a global thing, and they need everything to move.
Amazing.
They use everything they can, and they love to move.
Okay, so I know you're just dying to talk about it, and so am I. Okay, so we figured this out. We know that now there is a treatable challenge, something that physio can really help impact. Tell me about your approach, because you've mentioned that you're a dancer.
Yeah.
I know you used to do sort of dance therapy. Tell me about movement, dance, play, that approach that you take to your therapeutics.
Yeah, no, I think I taught ballet until a few years ago.
Oh,
I never stopped.
Interesting.
I loved to see and to learn how kids move. And it's very important for me to keep observing how they move, even to bring into my practice. So I always had a passion for even like little ballerinas. And so I do bring movement into my practice every day. And I think the experience that I have with you have to be very creative because sometimes you plan a program for this child, and when they come, they're like, no, I'm not doing that.
Adults too.
And it's totally right. It's okay. So it's my job to be creative and to adapt, and I have to be quick. So I think my creative part of the dance and choreography and the problem solving, and it comes in play, right? So I have an example. The other day, I have this child. She had a neonatal stroke. She's 2.5. And we were doing this kind of obstacle course where she had to work a lot of her balance and motor planning. And it was hard for her, right? And that's what we need. We need to challenge. They need challenge.
Right.
So she crossed her arms and she was like, Milena. I was like, yes. She's like, do you have kids? I was like, yeah. She's like, why don't you ask your kids to do this? And I'm like, you know what? You're right. How about you do an obstacle course for me? So you have to switch.
Right.
And so she did her own obstacle course. And then I said, but I taught you how to do yours. Now you're going to have to show me exactly how I am going to do this.
Right.
So she went to the process. So I did this because of that. So then you go here. So you have to be fast with kids.
Right.
They're on the go. And so the movement and the creativity, I kind of use it every day, even with young kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I move myself as well, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're working with kids, you kind of you move yourself with them.
And
So
even
it's-
getting her, it's really brilliant getting her to teach you,
yes,
right? Because then you're also reinforcing that behavior, the neuroplasticity, right?
Exactly.
Thinking about
Yeah.
how did I do that?
Yes.
Even if they can't articulate it
And-
as well.
And they love to be in charge sometimes,
Yes.
even at a young age.
Yeah.
The other day, I have this baby that she was, she's 10 months, and I wanted her to transfer to stand on a table. So we put all the toys, and I was like, and she was like, nope, I'm not moving. So by the time it's like, okay, you do whatever you want. And 2 seconds, she was up there.
Yeah.
So you
had to be her idea.
It has to be her idea.
Yeah.
So sometimes as a pediatric physio, also you have to learn when to step back and let them move to show you how they do it. So it's a lot of hands-on. It's a lot of techniques. It's a lot of guiding a movement that you want to achieve. But sometimes I step back and I just observe, and sometimes beautiful things happens on that moment, and that's why I love what I do.
What are some of the I think even just from a let's look at prevention and how like healthy movement promotion. What are some of the things that you recommend new parents of babies and toddlers like 0 to 3 that they can do to promote healthy movement for their kids?
Well, I think there's a lot. I could talk that by for hours. But I think for the newborn stage, like 0 to 4 months old, right after you come home from the hospital, sometimes if your first baby's like, what I'm going to do with this kid now? Like, right? I think it's positioning.
Instead of the swing or something.
Instead of don't. They don't need it. Like you can put the swing when you're cooking or having a shower.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's floor.
Yeah.
Floor
Okay,
play. And positioning. Like babies you can play on their side, on their back, on their tummy. So it's not just one position. The way you carry your baby around, it's very important.
Right.
When you change the diapers, there's a few exercises that you can do. Toe to mouth, boat. There's a lot of exercise. So it's not that I want to add more work for those parents.
But it's just kind of like playing with your baby
love
too.
it.
Yeah.
They love it, and you're stimulating and you're communicating and you're integrating with your baby.
Yeah.
So at early age, it's positioning, is how you carry, how you move, and it changes. It changes a lot, and parents love it.
Yeah.
At a older age, when they're getting a little bit like between 6 months to a year, then they're more in an upright position, right? They want to be more independent, and so it is floor, toys on the floor, toys on the couch, making their life sometimes a little bit harder.
Right. Like don't give them the toy, make them like
Exactly.
make
them
find a
work
path
for it.
Yeah.
The other thing that, especially in countries like Canada and that are colder during a long time of the year, kids are on a flat surface. Right? There's always flat. They have shoes outside, they have flat.
Right.
Make it the service more interesting. So step on pillows, do an obstacle course, go over obstacles, step on Legos inside the house. We make those connections, we make them react to that movement.
Different types of
different surfaces.
modulations on the floor.
It's like when we're outside, we walk on grass, on rocks, in the sand, but we can do that year round.
Yeah.
Right? So bring that to home. And I always say to parents, like Sports is swimming. Swimming, I'm a big advocate for swimming. Swimming is beautiful for all ages. I love swimming. If I could choose one activities for babies to go in.
Even like little babies.
Even little babies.
Yeah.
And I tell parents it's not swimming lessons.
Yeah.
You don't have to register them for swimming. You can take them swimming.
Yeah.
You can bounce
Like
in the
water
water.
play.
We can water play. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so swimming, dancing, like even like again, not dance lessons, but like
no, just
on the floor
fun.
with
Like
the music.
hiking. There's
Yeah.
nothing better for a tiptoe walker than go hiking on a hill.
Oh.
It's a huge workout for them.
Yeah.
So go hiking with your parents, dance, swimming, biking. It's all those activities that, it just creates fun within your family, strength, coordination, motor planning, and it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Also promotes like movement as part of a lifestyle as opposed to just something that we do like at the gym or because we have to.
Exactly.
But that it can be just like it should be a part of our lives.
100%.
Even from, an early age. Okay, I'm feeling so like, I just took my youngest daughter to a university and she's gonna maybe go there, and then like I'm just like those opportunities when they're young like that to be able to play with them, and it doesn't have to be with all of the crazy fancy toys.
No,
it can just be like with you,
and it's simple, like ball. You give
like a ball,
cup of balls to a kid and boxes, and let them create. And they will create because they love that. So you don't have to buy. Even at the clinic, sometimes I buy all those fancy toys and I bring it out my black pen. That's where the interest is. You can. My parents are if they're gonna be watching this, they're gonna say yes, that's right. Like you bring all those toys, and when you're gonna write down with your pen, they run to it. And so it's just boxes, balloons, balls. It's simple. They like the simple thing that they created on top.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this has just been such an interesting conversation. Thank you so much. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit.
Yep.
Because I just kind of, as we sort of round this out, I would love for you, if there, like, what is your one piece of advice that you would like to give parents when it comes to this entire subject? If you were to leave them with one thing, what would it be?
Trust your instincts, because we know. Most of the kids that I have was the parents who noticed first. But don't stress too much. Look for help. And remember, the kids are like sponges. We have a lot of things that we can do and help. They learn fast. It's the best time that we can get good results, and they will be okay. We are working with the family, and it's not just they go to the clinic and we do physio. We're going to be working together. So I think it's like, yes, be aware of what you're seeing. Don't ignore some signs that you think it's important. Ask questions, look for help. But at the same time, remember, they're young, they're learning. That's the time to build their foundations and to teach and to make connections on the brain. And usually it's a lot of fun that we have working with kids. And
if you address these things early. Like there's no, I always say, like, there's no harm in, like, I mean, obviously we don't want to, over stress about things, even though we do as parents, we do. Right? But like, it's so much easier to like have things checked and it's normal, it's not normal, whatever. Exactly. But if it's early, you can address those issues early on, and then they're not as big and complicated.
Exactly. It doesn't become a snowball.
Yeah.
So there is cases and there's cases, right? There's kids that are going to need long-term care physio kind of for a long period of time. But education can start earlier, how to manage that situation and how to grow with your kid. And there's kids that are like this quick kind of a few assessments. And then late at night, I got this video from a parent like, Milena, they're crawling. And it was like, how did that happen? Sometimes it's just the little missing piece that they needed. And then gives you peace of mind. Right?
And we didn't even really get into it too much, but like, freeing up a child to be able to move with ease has a huge impact, not just on their sort of physical development, but also like on their mental well-being as well.
100%. We can't separate movement, well-being, social connections, and their growth. They're growing, they're exploring, and play is their life, is the way of learning. So that's what we want. We want babies to explore, to reach for the toy, to share the toy. And that's my job.
Yeah.
My job is to teach them to be the best baby they can be, explore as much as they can. And
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I learn every day with them. It's not that I'm just there to teach and to help. I learn a lot with the families, with the kids, and even with the tiny little babies.
Yeah. And that's kind of a good segue. How has your definition of health or what constitutes health care changed? So it's from, maybe Milena that was back in the NICU, at 20 years old to today. How has your perspective changed, or has it?
I think for me personally, I think for me as a Milena, not as just a physio, I think I learned how to be more kind to myself and how to respect my limits and how to learn how to say, yeah, no, this is not for me. And that's, the kids teach you kind of a bit about that. Like they have their limit and you have to respect. And I wouldn't respect my limits. I'll keep pushing and pushing. It's like, no, I'm going to be fine. I'm strong. I can do it. And I was like, not really. So I think for me, I'm still learning that, how to stop, respect my limits, and say, nope, take a break.
Kids
it's
are very
okay
good
to
at
take a break.
communicating their limits.
Very good.
Yeah.
Even when they cannot even speak yet.
Yes.
So I think I'm still working towards that, on putting a little bit of respecting my limit. So, and being kind to myself. We're so kind to others. I'm so kind with the parents and the kids. And sometimes we're not kind to ourselves. And I think we need to be kind to ourselves to support our community and to support our friends and family
and our own health.
And our own health.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
I love that.
Uh-oh.
Thank you so much. I just
That's
can't
it?
believe. I know, right?
No.
I know, right?
I want to come back.
I know. This has been a really insightful conversation. We don't often have the ability to talk about some of our tiniest patients with such specificity. So thank you so much for sharing. You're obviously so passionate about your work, and I'm sure your littlest patients and their parents are so grateful for the service that you bring to our community. So thank you for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you so much for having me. The job that you do is so important, and we appreciate you very much. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.